We are honored to invite so many scholars, professors, and different faith leaders with us today to share about the harmony between this topic. Let's welcome Venerable Melong, our Dharma teacher of Fo Guang Shan, London. Second, I would like to introduce Mr. Di Yu Ye, which is the Secretary of Taipei Representative Office in the UK. Hello. And Professor B. Sheher, Director of the Insight Research Center. Dr. Jonathan Mayer, our Senior Lecturer at the University of Kent. Hello. Dr. Ken Holloway, Levison's Chairs in Asian Study, Director Asian Study Certified Program. Dhruv, International Mergers and Acquisition Lawyer at a global law firm, author of 21 books on Hinduism. This year, he has also received Her Majesty the Queen's New Year Honor list of the award of a Medal of the Order of the British Empire for voluntary service to Hinduism and developing young people. Next is Iman Nazim Akmal, who is the Islamic representative. Sarij Gavan, she is the author of Gratitude Gold Mine. Next, we have Alex Lee, the president of Fo Guang Shan London Chapter 1. And we have Maggie Wong, the vice president of London Buddhism Research Support Group. We have Tracy Lau, who is the PhD student at University of Cambridge, and she's an active member in our group. Next, we have Chris Du, who is our social media manager. And we have Kira Lee, who is the committee of London Fo Guang Shan Young Adult Division. So at the first section, I would like to invite Alex Lee and Di Yu Ye. Please open your microphone and your discussion can start now. Thank you.
Hi, Mr. Ye, do you want to introduce yourself first? I think most of the people doesn't know you.
Okay. Good evening, all distinguished guests. My name, can everybody hear my voice?
Yeah.
Okay. My name is T. Yu Ye. I'm the Secretary of Taipei Representative Office in the United Kingdom. It's really my great honor to be invited by the Fo Guang Shan London to attend this online meeting. Actually, I'm a civil officer of Taiwan's Overseas Community Affairs Council, and my first position is in the information department of the New Taipei city in Taiwan. And 3 years ago, I was assigned to the New York, and this year, in January, I come to London. This is my brief introduction. Thank you. Yeah.
And good evening, everybody. My name is Alex. I think I know most of everybody. So hi, I'm the current president of the BRA Fo Guang Shan in London. So my background is in engineering, QS. So I've been with Fo Guang Shan for about 6 years, 5 or 6 years now. So it's been still pretty new compared to others. Okay. So we should start. Mr. Ye, I know from a brief discussion, my understanding that as you and myself are saying, we're both born in Taiwan. So I'm sure you will have like the experience of what Taiwan's Buddhism is. But then later you moved down to New York, right?
Yes.
So I'm sure, and then you sort of have the connection also with the Fo Guang Shan in New York. So I would like to can you explain a little bit that in Taiwan, how did you got involved, or how did you connect it up with Buddhism, you know?
Okay. Actually, maybe because influence of my family members, my mother is very Buddhist. So since I was a child, I was contact with many of the Buddhism since I was a child. But actually, I have no much contact with Fo Guang Shan in Taiwan. But I know the Venerable Master Xing Yun is really famous in Taiwan for he advocates about the Humanian Buddhism and to want to practice the Buddhism into our every aspect of our lives. And when I first have the close contact with Foguangshan is when I came to New York 2 years ago. Yeah, the Foguangshan in New York is just near my office, so it's really honor Foguangshan New York he invites me to attend his events, like take some events, and let me know more about the Foguangshan's idealism and some thoughts, and they maybe some advocate some the acts of goodness, do good things, and do good things, and speak good words and think thoughts, and make me more realize about how Foguangshan and to promote something to good in the society. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
That's almost same as me, because for myself, I don't know, most of you guys are aware that I was actually born in Taiwan, and I was there for about 9 years. I was still a bit small. Then I moved to South Africa. So where I come to contact with Buddhism, to me, when I now hindsight, it tends to be more like Taoism, you know, where we we actually go into a temple and then you have your incense, and then you pray, and then of course you wish for health, wealth and protections. So to me, when they talk about Buddhism at that time, I thought that's it, you know, the old traditional way of Buddhism. And then when I moved to South Africa, well, that's where sort of most of my life, which I grew up in. I was in the Christian school, sorry, because in South Africa tend to be all Christian. So then I learned about Christianities, but then because most South Africa is mixture of Indians, Africans, and South African white. So it's with like the Hinduism, with my Indian friends, and South African, and then the Africans, they have their own little religion as well. So I come into contact with all different religions, but then I did not really get, back then when there were Foguangshan in South Africa, but because we own a restaurant, so I always remember this. My dad said that we cannot get involved in any particular religion because if we get involved or we become part of one particular faith group, and then when people do come to us to the restaurant, and when they come to chat to us or when they try to make conversations, you tend to have like a defense barrier up already because you really belong to a particular faith group. So with that in mind, I wasn't really get involved in any type of faith group, but we do attend all the functions. So when we do attend some of the functions, to me back then, when you're young, you don't really get really into religion if your family aren't, and then you always like active. You either study, and once you study your free time, you want to go out and play. So my knowledge of really Buddhism is always the traditional way, where you go and then you stand there and then you chant, and that when I say old-fashioned way, sense what we see on TV and understanding. Yeah, so that's my time in South Africa. So back to you. So now, so in America, you did come into touch with a little bit of for one side, but now you in London, you also got involved, right? So can you sort of say a little bit about what's different that from Taiwan that you know of? I'm assuming you grew up in Taiwan for a long time, and then in America, in London, is there like a little bit difference, or have they changed from the traditional way to more like what you understand now? What Foguangshan is, the humanistic side, the more modernism, I would say.
Yeah, actually, it's another good opportunity. When I moved to London, I contact with Foguangshan London again, and this is my first time to know the interface of harmony. It's a kind of events held by the Guang London. I think, especially in these times of COVID-19 spread. Everyone is so panic, and I think this is really a good opportunity for the religions can give us the stabilization of our hearts and assure the republic. I think it's the modern energy the religions can give to us and stabilize the society. This is my understanding now.
I totally agree because as I said, before I come to London, I know about it, but I didn't go try to understand it back then because when you're young, you don't think of all of these things. But when I actually really get involved into when I actually come to London, and
Yes.
when I actually really fully got involved for One Son, then I really so understand, okay, that is not the way that for One Son have gone for, or the Master Shin's teaching, it's not the old traditional way. It's more like a modern way, where it's so-called humanistic Buddhism, where you're so easy to practice. Because I don't know if people who know me, I'm not like a calm, sit-down people who study a lot. I'm just more like an active people. I like to do outdoor stuff. With sun shining outside, I want to go outside. Even running or just walking, I don't want to stay inside. So to me, to confine me into like a certain set of routine every Sunday or every Saturday, that's just not me.
Thank you for Alex and Di. Thank you so much for both of your interesting sharing. I think Fo Guang Shan has created a very good platform for different people around the world to stay connected. And we should stay connected as well, no matter where we are. And next, we would like to invite Dr. Kent Holloway and Maggie Wong. Please turn on your microphone.
Hello.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, okay, let me give it a start first. And I'm delighted to be here and have an open dialogue with Dr. Ken Holloway today at this forum on the topic, harmony between tradition and modern. And Dr. Holloway today will be discussing on why Chinese tradition is in harmony with modernity. So let us now welcome Dr. Holloway when you're ready.
Thank you for the opportunity to share in this forum today. So the basic thing that I wanted to start with is the idea that this modern world that we live in need not be seen as incompatible with history, particularly when looking at Chinese history. Because in fact, when we think, the easiest way to visualize this, if you close your eyes for a moment and think about what you think of in your mind when you imagine classical art, the classics, right? That would be something that probably a picture that references something biblical, something Greek, something Roman, right? Something like that, or maybe a portrait of an individual, right? The great people of history. But when you look at Song dynasty art, Song was 960 to 1279 of the Common Era. Song art includes everyone. In the Song painting, Qiming Shanghe Tu, that is about the Qiming festival, the grave sweeping festival, it includes the common people. You see men and women socializing together in stores. You see there's two Buddhist venerables in the painting that are out there engaged with others. And when you think about what that means in terms of artwork, it means that the art of that time fits what we today think of as modern. And so really the start of trying to think that the Song dynasty was modern breaks that idea that we need to separate ourselves from the past in order to be modern. And my professor, Robert Hartwell, he worked very hard to explain that this time period, the Song, was very modern, economically, as well as providing for important protections for women, legal protections. So women in the Song could sue for divorce. They could maintain custody of their children. They could run businesses. And this is not a privilege that women had in England even into the 19th century. So when we think about what is modern and what is pre-modern, when you really get into Chinese tradition, it really mixes that all up.
Okay, so I understand the Song dynasty was a very advanced period of time And I remember learning that this is when the first movable type printing press was invented. However, how does this relate to Buddhism specifically?
Okay, so the Song was a high point of not only Buddhism, but also Taoism and Confucianism. And Master Xingyun is a lineage holder. He's a master within the Linji sect. And in the Song, there was a very famous Linji master named Dahui Zong, who lived from 1089 to 1163. And Dahui Zonggao is famous for transmitting the Dharma to several of his women disciples and for arguing that women and men are equal within Buddhism. And so this time, particularly this Linji world, which Master Xingyun and Fo Guangsan today is part of, when we think of modern, we usually think we have to break with that past. But with Buddhism, particularly Fo Guangsan and this Linji tradition, there's this intense compatibility.
Okay. The Linji sect in the Song seems very modern, but how about today? What makes Fo Guangshan a modern temple?
So, you know, I'm just finishing an article on this that I'm going to go submit to a journal on Monday. But the argument that I make in the article is that, you know, when we're trying to find what is modern Buddhism, you know, which is this big question, one of the major activities that Fo Guangsan is known for is a big involvement of women. A lot of our venerables are female, right? A lot of our members are female. Yeah. And one of the big activities that we do, we're UN NGO. So one of the big activities that I was part of a presentation at last year at the Commission on the Status of Women at UN headquarters in New York City was to discuss the activities of our Guangming College. So Guangming Daxue in the Philippines is majority women. All of them are on scholarships. And the president of the university is a local woman from the Philippines. So women empowering women, that is what makes Buddhism modern. And that's how we connect what we do today, you know, directly back to the Song. But if I may, briefly, the connection that I see, the reason I wanted to raise this is that when you, all of us in this chat today, when we face difficulties and challenges in our lives, we're often conflicted. Is this thing Buddhism really what I can turn to for my life's answers? And I hope that by understanding some of the history of this connection between how our religion really is very modern, it can maybe give us faith to persevere when we're faced with challenges, when we're trying to prepare for the challenges of COVID-19, understanding the meditation and prayer, all of these things that we're doing, they're deeply compatible with being engaged with our modern world.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Holloway. And I think you bring up a very good point, and I would like to conclude on what you have explained to us today. So in today's session on Chinese tradition in harmony with modernity, Dr. Holloway discussed how the Song dynasty, a high point for Buddhism and Confucianism, was modern. And it was explained that Naito Konan, who proposed that the Song dynasty was the first time in history when modern ideas were first systematically implemented, which lots of scholars have already done a lot of development to the ideas of Song being modern since then. So I also particularly like the idea that Dr. Holloway used visual, like the along the river during Qingming Festival as an idea and in comparison to illustrate the difference between Song and classical European arts. And he said that it was explained that the Song's humanistic values where everyone is included in relation to the poor and rich, and versus the classical European art which focused on the elite only. And however, the modern art values the authentic original contributions of individuals. So regarding my question on what makes Fo Guangshan a modern temple, one of the examples that Dr. Holloway mentioned was the charitable project of Guangming College. And it was empowering the women from marginalized socio-economic backgrounds. And the students from Guangming College are actually selected based on demonstrated potential and also the financial needs. and they're provided with scholarship. And also because the Venerable Master Xing always emphasized that only through education may we uplift ourselves from poverty, redirect our future, and create a strong nation. So it commits to a humanistic education towards the betterment of self, others, and the world in this modern society. Yeah. Now I think Dr. Holloway would be sharing his friend, the musician Jeff Mellin, the video of him recording his song "So Far So Good," right when his wife, who is a physician, was starting a 12-day shift at the UPenn hospital at the start of the pandemic. And when you're ready, if you...
Okay.
Yeah,
let me say one thing. There's a line in there that might not make sense coming from a UK context. He says in there, the refrigerator trucks are standing by. That's because his wife in the hospital, the morgue is going to be overwhelmed. So the refrigerator truck is where the dead bodies are going to be placed in temporary housing. So it comes across as a song which is just very kind of light and beautiful, but there's some very intense emotion, and I hope you enjoy it. So without further ado, let me share.
Many thanks for you sharing this. So we'll watch from his share screen.
Late. I'm probably gonna wake somebody up. This is the only time when I can do this without being interrupted when people are sleeping. Let's give it a shot. So far, so good. I'm trying to keep things in the distance, like they say I should. By a glowing screen, I'm trying to slow the speed of light that's growing in between. So far, so good. It's getting colder, but they say they did all they could. And you ought to trust them by the icy twinkle in their eye. Refrigerated trucks are standing by. Oh, land of milk and honey. Oh, land of dirty money. No milk today, I wonder why. Refrigerated trucks are standing by. So long for now. I'm gonna get to know myself best as I know how. When all of this is over, I'm gonna need to hold you closer than I ever thought I could. Until then, my friends, so far, so good. Good night.
That's wonderful.
Sorry about that. A bit slow on the release of that. Thank you. He was facing his raising 3 sons, maybe, if his wife didn't come back. So it's from the hospital, and she did. They're fine, but it was a very intense moment. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you for both. It's a pleasure tonight having Dr. Holloway to share with us how Song dynasty were modern in relation to Chinese tradition with modernity, and with this beautiful piece of music. I know a quote from Dr. Holloway. Art is important. It is what makes life worth living, even in tough times. It really does inspire and spirit us during this pandemic. Much appreciate again. Thank you so much again. Thank you. And next, I would like to invite Professor B. Sheher and Tracy Lau.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you so much for inviting me again. It's a great honor. And I think what Tracy and I want to do is just raise a couple of points around tradition and modernism. And I just say two sentences and then I give over to Tracy. I want to pick up where Ken so beautifully put it, this idea that modernity is something that does not need to connect us or is different from the past. And he quoted the Song Dynasty. Actually, I want to challenge this whole idea of that there is a dichotomy between tradition and modernity, because modernity as a concept in the Ideengeschichte, in the history of thought, is obviously also grounded on tradition, on certain tradition. And we tend to see a dichotomy or a binary between traditional on the one hand and modernity, and we sometimes use modern when we mean contemporary. But modernism or modernity is much more a project of the mind, and it has to do with two main strains. And one strain is a sort of disenchantment, rationalism and positivism. But the other one is much more diffuse. It has to do with Anglo-European and American romanticism and transcendentalism. And so when we now look at what we mean with modernism in religion, then, and especially in Buddhism, then we have to understand that we are talking here about a move towards positivism, towards psychologization, demythologization, but on the other hand, also a sort of individualization of spirituality. This whole idea and concept of spirituality, in a sense, is a project of modernity and then of postmodernity. And here's the rub. I already said postmodernity. We as subjects in the 21st century concurrently inhabit pre-modern, modern and postmodern spaces. So modernity is not an era, but it is a state of mind, and we oscillate from different modes of thinking. And they are all in communication with each other. And people can encompass traditionalist and modern and postmodern modes of thinking at the same time. And we should not forget that humanistic Buddhism can be seen as a form of Buddhist modernism that is still incredibly rooted in very, very traditional Chinese Mahayana Buddhism, or more specifically Rinzai or Lingzhen Shan Buddhism. So there is a continuity here, there's a spectrum here. And that's what makes humanistic Buddhism modernist, not modern, but modernist, is the new, you could say, emphasis on social engagement. Buddhism always had some social engagement, but the way we go about the focus to the human world, that is a modernist feature, but then there's also clear features of re-enchantment. That would be postmodernism then, yeah. So we have enchantment, disenchantment, re-enchantment. Yeah. And so that is a strand that is very different from the modernism that is going towards New Age or towards secularism, where you just do some mindfulness, but you don't connect it with Buddhism anymore. So I stop there and just want to point to this continuum in these concepts of mind rather than historical periods. And I give over to Tracy.
Okay, thank you so much. Thanks for Professor to have a very fascinating discussion about the relation between tradition and modernism and try to deconstruct the binary between the two concepts. So for me, I just want to share some of my thoughts on these terms and have a question to ask. So the relations between tradition and modern, I think the topics does not only attract scholars in academia, but also very practical for a Buddhist like me or a practitioner in general to think about. So I think the reason is Buddhism itself is really changes a lot through the history and across the geographical territories. So that is a problem for the people who are not very familiar with Buddhism, or they are very easily to take apart for the whole, but cannot see the whole picture of Buddhism. For example, a lot of friends around me, they are from America, and they're really keen to meditation. They follow the trend of the Vipassana and training themselves, for example, like the breath awareness and the sensation of the body, paying attention to train their focus. But they have no idea about Buddhist teachings. For example, loving kindness or compassion, or the key terms in I think in the Buddhist teachings. They just abandon the religious form and the supernatural connotations and just use mindfulness to pursue their secular goals, like how to make money, how to win the competitions, so forth. So for me, those kind of ideas or the actions are really dangerous because they move far away from the Buddha's teachings, especially the Buddha's original intent of how to achieve liberation without attachment. So for me, I want to ask the question like, what are the dangers for the people who only take the modern form, but don't care about the traditional Buddhist teachings? As I mentioned about compassion or loving kindness, equanimities, and so forth. And the second question is about how do the practitioners, if they want to practice meditation, how could they do to keep a balance between tradition and modern? Thank you.
So I don't know, Tracy, was the question right asked to me, or is that just a general question where we should end with? Because honestly, I think, Tracy, you already said wonderfully answered your first question. You know, it's, if you utilize Buddhist methods without the ethical foundation of Buddhism and the liberatory path, then you just fetishize Buddhism. It's not really Buddhism, and it's you bastardize it. And it's not a problem of Buddhist modernism yet, but it's a problem of your motivation and your intention. Yeah. So you're even if you then say you do some Buddhist meditation, you're not really engaging with Buddhism. And here's the thing. I personally believe that we always need to inhabit partially pre-modern, modern, and postmodern spaces, and we need to navigate between them, depending on the context. And because also our modern reality is shifting and always changing according to different aspects of these kind of states of mind. And here motivation is the most important thing. So, and that also answers, I think, the second question a little bit.
Yeah.
You know? Because as Buddhists, when we have the right intention, then everything can become meditation, and we don't need to become really good in sitting meditation, and we also don't need to become really good in chanting or a scholar of the scriptures if the right intention is there. And we need to keep open to the tradition. We need to be aware of the big flow of the tradition that gives us all the different tools. We don't need to reject that. If we personally go a slightly different path, yeah. So we keep an open and willing mind, and at the same time, without the individuals that are enchanted by the tradition and take the robes and become venerables or become professors or become other people, you know, without these, Buddhism itself also would cease to exist and would just become a shallow, a fake, you could say, you know. So in that sense, all we need is the right intention and an open mind and a genuine happiness for people who have their different emphases, yeah, and their different negotiations of these modes of state of mind, pre-modern, modern, and postmodern. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think the Professor B's answer is really practical for practitioners, how to keep a kind of ethical and good intentions in their mind when they practice themselves and cultivate themselves, not only to focus on the form, like doing meditation or counting the breath in, breath out, those kind of actions. Yeah. So I think Buddhism in the contemporary world, not only the religious form is shaped by the different cultures and shaped by the different contexts, and people have the different understandings and with the journey of the history.
Thank you very much, Nassim. I enjoyed that. And thank you for that reminder about paying people back with love. These days, you know, because we're all communicating in this electronic way, I find myself reminded about that a lot in my working life, because it's very difficult to communicate with people electronically. By email, or even in these things where only one person can talk at a time, there's no context. It's so easy to get annoyed with people, and then and afterwards I keep thinking with myself, you know, I haven't lost my temper, but afterwards I keep thinking, I should have been a bit more patient and a bit more, well, loving, and then it would have been better. Usually in the end I remember to do it, but it would have been better to be able to do it in the moment that somebody is feeling.
If you don't mind me asking, I mean, do you find that under this, are you in the UK?
Yeah, I'm in Kent.
Do you find that in the last 8 weeks, you've had more time to really reconnect with other aspects of your, you know, existence, your being? And I found that the 8 weeks, it's been tough in some ways, but I think it's allowed me to be able to reconnect with the other aspects of, you know, my being, you know, the spiritual aspects. I think one of the problems I mentioned in the modern world is that there's too much emphasis on the physical, too much emphasis on the intellectual side. I mean, the whole media is awash with just intellectual debates and who can win over which argument is better than this argument, and a doctrinal war within the media. And I think we just need to somehow take a step back and realize that, no, let's go a bit deeper. And the traditions which, you know, calls us to do that are, I would say, the modern traditions, you know, Buddhism, the spiritual aspects of Islam. It calls us to pull back, go to a deeper level, which is the spiritual level, and you'll find harmony. And really, the balance and harmony which you create is really a balance and harmony that you create within ourselves. The product of that gets manifested into society. And that's what, you know, I truly believe, and that's what Islam really tries to encourage us to, you know, inculcate within ourselves. You know, you're not going to have harmony it doesn't matter whether you are technologically you're in a modern world or postmodern world, even more advanced. There won't be any harmony until you create harmony within the 3 dimensions of our existence. And once you do that, that will manifest in society. And I think the lockdown period has allowed me to, you know, focus on this a lot more. People I've spoken to are more reflective. The world hasn't come, you know, tumbled on our head because of you know, economic recession. You know, world is going to continue. We will find other ways to improve ourselves as human beings. And, you know, we've been taught all these years the economic growth is the most important, vital of every source of all our you know, the most important thing of all. But it's not the case. You know, you can find meaning in a much deeper level, which you need to bring forth, you know, as human beings and spread to society in a different way of being. That's how I've looked at this whole lockdown phase, really.
Yeah, I think it's certainly, although it's been very difficult and very difficult for you know, for some people more than other people. For a lot of people, and this applies to us, I think we found the same, even though, you know, my work has continued. I've been quite busy, but I've been at home a lot more, been trying to learn some music, bit of gardening, and just being around and, you know, cutting down on the news to a certain extent. The music, actually, I know this is harmony. This session is about harmony, maybe in a metaphorical sense. My wife Bao Zhen here is going to help by singing this chant that is sung when the objects belonging to a monastic are conferred, while I go on to explain about it a little bit more. Would you like to begin?
Okay. 善哉解脱父，尊贵礼禅意。
So while the participants, sometimes in Taiwan, it's up to 1,000 participants maybe taking part at once. They receive the vows of being a monastic. They receive the begging bowl of the monastic, the gown of a monastic, and the sitting mat of a monastic. Thank you very much. Thank you. So, so you can hear the beautiful sound, and the words are very meaningful too. But one thing, even with Bao Zhen's beautiful voice, one thing you can't hear when just one person is singing it is the effect of many, many people singing at once. And that's a very important part of Buddhist chanting. It's a practice of gongxiu, communal practice. So I just want to end with one quotation, which was in an article that I wrote with a friend and colleague, Tracy Supervisor James, about the short-term monastic retreats. And this was given an explanation of why chanting is important at one of the retreats that took place in Paris. I believe this was Venerable Manxian who said this. She said, once an opera singer came to the London temple and challenged us by singing very high and then very low. In the end, she was defeated by us. She realized we're connected to the Buddha. If you have a great voice, you might not want, if you have a great voice, you might want to show off, but you will be defeated by the congregation. We're all trained in the same way, so we sing in unison, and it sounds very good. We have the power of community. Our water and land ceremony has 108 monastics singing, but we're not there to compete with each other. It's all about teamwork. This is important for cultivation. You need other people around you, or you won't know that you've changed. So that's the point I wanted to leave you with, that Buddhist chanting as a community, as a group, is a way of harmonizing with each other, being aware of the other people around you and your relationship to them as you move around, as you participate with different kinds of practices with them. So it's a kind of community cultivation for harmony.
It's great to hear. I remember when I was in a 3-day trip to Taiwan, it was about 2 years ago, and I got a feeling of what you're saying. I was saying Fugan Shun for 3 nights, and what you're saying kind of really resonates with my experience of being there. Thank you very much. Thank you for that.
Thank you for both.
Thank you.
So I will start at first sharing about Buddhism modernism. So Buddhism modernism is not just a Buddhism that happens to exist in the modern world, but Buddhism cross-fertilized with Western ideas and practices. So many 20th century scholar studies of Buddhism followed the modernist, assuming that, oh, this was a true Buddhism and popular Buddhism on the ground was actually less than relevant. Only in recent decades have scholars begun to appreciate the modernity of those articulations of Buddhism against a backdrop of the great diversity of Buddhism traditions across the Asia and throughout their long history. Recent iterations of Buddhism modernism include global lay meditation movements such as insight meditation movement, modernist forms of Zen, and socially engaged Buddhism, which address the political and social realities while liberally borrowing from Western political and social theory and the language of the rights. The works below includes scholarly analysis of Buddhism modernism and scholarly works that assume certain modernist perspective. For example, there is some studies about feminist studies of Buddhism and socially engaged advocacy scholarship, along with a small sampling of primary sources that review Buddhist modernism from the inside and in its historical development. Academically, this is a very good trend that Buddhism is actually showing in front of the people in a more acceptable and applicable way. And it's very essential to find a good and easy way to let more people learn more about Buddhism modernism. So in Guang Shan, the way it advocates Buddhism modernism is to actually use practical education to embed Buddhism into people's modern life, especially to young generations. For example, Venerable Miaolong has organized a lot of events to attend regular events held by the UK Parliament. In those events, we discussed about politics, talk about housing, learn about government party structure, or engage with the modern music to sing Buddhism songs. I remember that one time we were invited to attend an event discussing about the people, the power and parliament by the UK Parliament. And in that event, we discussed about climate change and food consumption with people with different backgrounds, which was a absolutely wonderful experience. From what I've experienced, the way that Guang Shan advocates the young people to practice Buddhism is actually to relate our daily life to Buddhism philosophy. We care about every issue in the current society, and we care about each other. We want to contribute to make a better society. From what we experience, and we learn about a simple philosophy about Buddhism. That is the beauty of Buddhism humanism advocated by Master Xingyun. So Dhruv, what do you think of the modernization of Hinduism? What do you think is the key feature that sets modern Hinduism apart from traditional Hinduism? Is there any difference, or there is the same thing? Or could you give some interesting examples to share with us?
Hariom. Hello to all of those in this meeting, and thank you to my dear friends Ricky and Kyra for the kind introduction, and to Kyra for such a profound and beautiful speech. I'm delighted to be on the session and to have this opportunity to speak to you all today. And I thank the organizers of the program for bringing us all together from all different religions and walks of life. So I'm going to talk about Hinduism, as Kyra mentioned, which is known as also as Sanatan Vedic Dharma. And related to this topic of this conference, Sanatan Dharma means that which has no beginning and that which has no end. So if something has a beginning, then it's bound to have an end. But if something has no beginning, then it can't have an end. So the Dharma, which encompasses Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, Sikhism, has no beginning and no end. And the oldest literature in the world is the Rig Veda, and even scientists today are unable to date the Rig Veda with modern technology. But related to what Kyra mentioned, Vinoba Bhave, who was a close associate of Mahatma Gandhi, has classified the definition of a Hindu as a person with 10 characteristics. And I'll go through them and I'll show how they apply to both modern and traditional life. So the first is a belief in the Varna system, which I'll explain. Second is a belief in the ashram system. Third, we worship cows as a mother. Fourth, we worship the Vedas, the scriptures, as a mother. Fifth, we do not undermine any form of the divine. Sixth, we give equal respect to all ways of thinking and ways of life. Seventh, we believe in rebirth. Eighth, we believe that we can be liberated from the cycle of birth and death. Ninth, our heart melts at the thought of violence. And 10th, we wish well for all living beings, so even animals and plants. So first of all, the first thing I mentioned was we have tremendous faith in the Varna system, So our great sages in the Himalayas divided the people into 4 categories depending on which element of water, fire, wind, and ether and earth is predominant in a human being, which are Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras, meaning intellectuals, warriors, merchants, and laborers. So it's roughly kind of one type of Varna is a person who has an interest in knowledge with a water element, which are the Brahmins. Second is a Kshatriya who has a predominant fire element, which is a person that has an interest more in power. The third is the person who are more interested in the wealth. They want the possessions, which have a predominant of the earth element, which are the Vaishyas. And the 4th category are the people who are predominantly of the air element, which are the Shudras, who get pain in seeing the physical difficulties of other people. So related to modern times, people are very not getting career satisfaction because they don't understand who they are and what is my purpose in life and what am I composed of. By realizing who they are, people can attain job satisfaction, which affects so many aspects of their being in modern life. So I think that's a very traditional yet modern aspect of the tradition. But the second characteristic of a Hindu is the belief in the Ashra system. So just like society is divided into 4 categories, life is divided into 4 stages as follows. So the first stage is Brahmacharya ashram, which is student life in a hermitage for first 25 years of one's life. Second stage is Grahasth ashram, which is householder life from the ages of 25 to 50. Third, Vanaprastha ashram, which is dedicating or service to society from the ages of 50 to 75. And fourth is Sannyas ashram, which is withdrawal from society and focus entirely on spirituality, which is from 75 onwards. So the problem in modern times is people are allocating the wrong periods of their life to the wrong causes. People are kind of trying to study too late in life when they should be focusing on their studies early. People are bringing spirituality too late in their life when it should be at their childhood stage. So it's a very important kind of thing to focus on in the modern life, to allocate the right period in the life to the right cause. So the third, we worship the cows as a mother. So no culture worships cows like Hindus do. It's very well known. So when we were young, our mothers gave us milk, but it wasn't enough. For the rest of our lives, cows give us milk. So cows are like our mothers. Therefore, when the cow stops giving us milk, we don't slaughter the cow. And there's so many social, economic, environmental, health, and other benefits that cows give us. And that's why we worship cows as mothers. And if you're seeing today's times, the pandemics, this is not the first pandemic, unfortunately, that will come about. But the pandemics are as a result of man and nature being at a discrepancy. If there was a greater connection between human beings and nature, we wouldn't be in this situation. So it advocates humans, animals, and plants living together in harmony. Fourth, we worship the Vedas as the mother, and the Vedas represent the wisdom which we respect, but we're not fanatical about it. In fact, we are given freedom. The great Srimad Adi Shankaracharya said that if the Vedas say that fire is cold, then I won't believe it because I know that fire is hot. And Shri Krishna said in the 2nd chapter of the Bhagavad Gita that the Vedas are about the 3 modes of nature of goodness, passion, and inertia, but one has to go beyond them. So when wisdom is embedded within you and you're spiritually pure, then everything you do is right. Fifth, we do not disrespect any form of the divine. We have many forms and deities of the divine, which is very relevant when it comes to interfaith and dialogue in modern times. Sixth, we give equal respect to all ways of thinking and ways of life. So Sanatana Dharma is never aggressive at converting people. Other faiths may say that you have to convert, but we are fine with others' ways of life, which is very important for coexistence in modern times. Seventh, just like Buddhism, we believe in rebirth. One of the most important things we believe in is rebirth, and a whole book can be written about this topic. And it's a law of nature, just like the entire law of karma is based on the law of rebirth. Eighth, we believe we can be liberated from the cycle of birth and death. We're not slaves to the cycle, we want to go beyond this. Ninth, our heart melts at the thought of violence. A Hindu cannot stand the thought of violence, just like Buddhists, Jains, and Sikhs. So I feel that's very, very necessary in today's time as veganism becomes more and more important. Finally, and 10th, we wish well for all living beings. Modern science is talking about environmental degradation, but we've been talking about it since the dawn of time. And our sages were so enlightened that they said this many millennia ago. So we have to be so enlightened that we don't come in the way of others. So that was a quick summary of how we can merge the tradition and the modern in terms of Hinduism. But I want to leave you with a few verses in Sanskrit, which are every day repeated by millions of people in India. and which were chanted by the Indian Prime Minister when he went to Central Park in New York, which I believe that represents some of the most powerful thoughts in the universe. So Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhina, Sarve Santu Niramaya, Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu, Ma Kaschit Dugabhag Bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. It's an ancient Vedic prayer which means Om, may all be happy and prosperous, may all be healthy, may all see auspiciousness, may none suffer. Om, peace, peace, peace. Thank you.
Thank you. Ricky.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for both of your interesting sharing about Buddhism and Hinduism, which has highlighted the key principles of both religions and the characteristic. It's a very meaningful and spiritual conversation on the core concern, what they really means to a religion's life. Thank you both of your sharing. Thank you, Drift, again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time. Thank you. Thanks for sharing.
Thank you. Absolute delight. Thank you.
Thank you. And next, I would like to invite Sarit and Chris.
Hi there. So I understand that we're a little bit different. We're not having a conversation as such. We're a bit of a little bit of contribution verbally and then some music. So first I would like to say thank you.
Looking forward.
Me too. First I would like to say thank you for Venerable Miao Lung and everybody for inviting me into this forum. I feel so welcome into everything that you guys do, and as somebody who was born Jewish but is now purely spiritual and not subscribed to any particular religion, I'm so grateful for the warmth and the good vibration that I feel from Guang Shan, and I truly feel that it's helping me on my own spiritual journey, but not from a prescribed perspective, very much from we want you to be how you are, and we want you to take nourishment from Buddhism in your own way, and that is priceless, and I just really hope, especially at this time, and I'll go into that in a minute, I just hope that more people can receive that nourishment in their own way, possibly from all religions, because they all have something amazing to offer, and it's the dialogue and the openness that Guang Shan offers that I really feel, we could all do with that, and I hope that, we spread this light more and more into the world. What I was going to say was going and connecting actually with what Dhruv was saying about how people often too late in life connect with their purpose and spirituality. I totally agree. Interestingly, my spiritual journey began when I was 15. I'm now 43. But I didn't realize it was the beginning of my spiritual journey. What had happened was I fell into a depression at the age of 15, thought that I was hearing voices, but actually it was my divine inner being speaking. But because I was such a sensitive person and I didn't accept that, and people around me didn't accept that, I thought there was something wrong with me. And it was only really later on in life that I realized that it is my inner being. So I'm really grateful for that. Going back to people connecting with their spirituality and their purpose, I feel as though obviously the global pandemic has been tragic on many levels, but I'm now looking at it through the eyes of gratitude. It's forced the world to put itself on pause, and I truly hope that, I know for a fact that many more people are starting to awaken spiritually as they see some of the positive things that are happening. For example, with the ozone layer repairing itself and the animals coming out, and in Venice, that the water's starting to clear and you've got dolphins coming. And in fact, I feel so strongly that this is a huge opportunity for people to wake up to their inner being, that I'm starting a community well-being organization to help people who want to keep hold of all the goodness that has come out of this situation, and just support them in any way in order to keep hold of that goodness and that nourishment, so that we can grow from this situation. I think that's all I want to say. The other thing just to mention is, in terms of music, I really resonated with what John was saying. Thank you so much for sharing that quote as well. I feel totally peaceful when I sing. It's the vibration just resonates throughout my whole being, and a practice that I have started to develop. It may be seen as chanting and mantras. If I'm feeling particularly stressed, I'll just choose a word, a quality that I want in that given moment, and I'll just sing that word, and it just totally changes my vibration. I just feel truly grateful for that. And perhaps that's something that I've picked up from Buddhism or other various areas that I've been exploring. I just wanted to share that. So on that note, pardon the pun, I would like to offer my singing of the Sand Bao for, I'd like to offer it as gratitude to Master Xing Yun for connecting me with this incredible community and all the love and positive energy and support, particular support, especially from Venerable Miao Lang and the study group in my community endeavors. So by singing this, I'm offering my gratitude and my respect. And please excuse my pronunciation. I'm going to do my very best. Namo Pho Twoye, Namo Dhammo Ye, Namo Sung Chie, Namo Pho Fa Sung. 您是我们的救主，您是我们的真理，您是我们的导师，您是我们的光明。我以你。 我敬仰您，我尊敬您。南无佛陀耶，南无达摩耶，南无僧。 Thank you.
无怨无悔，奉献牺牲，领是人间佛教的行者，您是说破世界的导师。 您是佛光教团的光明。Sorry about the hiccup. I guess that's our lessons in modernizing Buddhism. So I wanted to add a little bit more on what I have heard so far, and thank you for. Jonathan, giving us the chance to make a contrast of how we think and Sari, which I have a great honor singing alongside multiple occasions during Fo Guangshan's a lot of different events. And as a social media manager, I witness and participate in a lot of different events that is organized by Fo Guangshan London Temple, and that including music performance, all different kind of singings, and interfaith events that have a dialogue with different faith group as well. And and also teach me from a layman's perspective, picking up a point of the earlier earlier speech that I learned is about paying back, and that with our compassions, and that is an idea that I think transcends whether traditions and modernism, and it's something that I learned a lot with the faith that I have just recently acquired. And after this, I would like to pass on the time to Alex Lee, and he's and also give us more thoughts about the great experience that I have from the study group. So please, Alex.
So we have formed this group for nearly 3 years now with our Dharma teacher, Venerable Melong. So a lot of people may wonder how we have an idea to form this group. It is all about the moment back into 2017, where we have a discussion with Venerable Melong. Because many scholars, young scholars especially, have a great passion in Buddhism study and Dharma, or want to write their research essay about humanistic Buddhism, but they don't have a proper guidance or resource and reference to support them. Therefore, this is the initiation we formed this support group. So our group is to support and cultivate young scholars to follow the righteous way of learning Buddhism with right conditions, right view, and right resolution. Our members are mainly university students who are studying master and doctoral degree. The group holds regular meetings to report research progress and organize open discussion on Buddhism topics and interfaith as well. We have a very strong cultural and community values. Our mission and goals build around 3 core values: education, propagation, and giving back. So the group has consistent effort to be inclusive, to bring people together, and to emphasize our equal right to knowledge and participation that spread these differences in cultural, races, and religions background. For educations, we believe that knowledge is valuable, and through our events and activities, we aim to broaden awareness and equip our communities with the righteous mindset and attitude to face challenge. And also for propagations, we focus on applying Buddhist practice to our daily life, whilst developing a great understanding of modern day Buddhist philosophy, especially humanistic Buddhism, which emphasize on integrating Buddhist practice into daily life and to purify humans' heart and mind through Buddhist practice, using 3 acts of goodness, forgiving, and 5 harmony. And for giving back, as Buddhists, we truly believe the giving back allows us to practice what we preach. So our group are a community-driven group, and we want your support to empower our community to share peace and harmony. Thank you.
And good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me here today. I'm really pleased to join the meeting, and thank you so much for people who already shared your opinions, your ideas, and brilliant discussions in the first part. When Venerable Melong asked me to join the session, I just jumped in. I thought, I'll share about my experiences in Fo Guangshan retreat in 2017, summer 2017, where I spent a month in headquarters, and those feelings of harmony actually within myself that I felt during the retreat. But then I thought a little bit more, and I decided to share how I came back to some of the practices and routines that we were doing in Fo Guangshan actually to cope with the lockdown here in the UK. So 2 weeks into the lockdown, I felt rather low. I live on my own and my family is far away. My parents are already in the age where they are quite vulnerable, and I have even more vulnerable grandma. Also, during that time, my hospice started thinking about opening another ward that would be dedicated to COVID patients. So a lot of different feelings were going through me, and then I thought like my well-being was really important, to be able as well to support people both back home in my family and to support people I work with. So I started thinking when it was the time and I felt the best, and then I realized that having that routine that was established in Taiwan in a monastery was something that really worked for me. So I thought I'll try again, waking up early and sitting down on the meditation cushion and doing some reflections, gratitude reflections. And it was quite hard to wake up 5:30. It required a bit of discipline the first morning, but after sitting down and meditating, and afterwards, writing a gratitude journal, the same morning I felt way more better and more positive energy flowing through me. So it's been now a month and a half I've been practicing that, and it changed a lot how I approach my work and how I support my colleagues working in the wards with the patients. So it's throughout this period I really kind of realized that I can't change what's happening to us, but I can definitely change how I can respond to this situation, and that comes exactly through the practice of meditation and gratitude. Brings that positive energy in me, and I can spread that kindness when I come into the hospice. So I'm really grateful for all the experiences and the skills that I learned in Taiwan, and I think without those I wouldn't be able to cope the way I cope now and support people around me. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to share, and it was really inspiring to hear all your sharing. So I'm just full of very moving. So I was asked by Venerable Miao Long to share some experience I have with Guang Shan. So I like to say that I actually known Guang Shan for a long time, because I'm from Taiwan, from Kaohsiung, where the headquarters of Guang Shan is. So I knew it when I was very little, but I only started to regularly visit the temple since 2017. And I still remember the day when I arrived in London for Guang Shan on the 30th of December 2017. I saw Venerable Miao Long and Venerable Miao Yuan, who is now in France. And they both welcomed me very warmly, and they introduced me the temple and various activities. And then they invited me to come back. And thanks to them, I started to attend services and take part in different activities, and also later I took refuge in the temple. I believe every one of you here has a story of how you came to Guang Shan and what made you stay. And I think most of you will probably agree with me in saying that the great hospitality shown by the venerables and the people in the temple is one of the main reasons that we become part of this community. And we all know that Guang Shan practice is kind of humanistic Buddhism, and we also talked about this before. As Venerable Master Xing Yun says, Buddhism from the beginning, it's humanistic Buddhism. So when I first heard of this, actually, I found it a bit peculiar. Why do we need to use this term to describe this branch of Buddhism? But over these years, I've come to see this in a different light. Buddhist practitioners can take different focuses in their path of practicing. when Venerable Master Xing Yun encouraged his disciple to always have helping others in mind, to offer confidence, to offer joy, to offer hope and convenience, this temple makes itself a place that opens to people, welcomes people to come and stay, and most importantly, it makes itself a home where people feel comfortable to be in and where they can come back when they come across difficulties in their practices. And this is how I feel. So I sincerely thank Venerable Master Xing Yun and the venerables in the temple and all the people I've met here for me to have such a home to be in and to come back when I face difficulties. So thank you all very much.
Yes, hi. Please, can you go ahead?
Yes. Good evening, everyone. So yeah, thanks very much for having me here. So I would also like to share a little bit of my experience. So I'm a quite new Buddhist, I would say. So I have become a Buddhist for only a little more than 1 year. So I think I first want to share my experience of how do I became a Buddhist. So I studied physics in my university. So due to the education that I received, I am more interested in the so-called theoretical part of the world, like how the universe works, why do we have self-consciousness, like why the flower that different people observe is the same flower, etc. So later I realized that part of these questions can be answered by science, but the other part cannot be answered. So that's I would say the initial motivation, or the 缘起, that I turned to religion for the questions in the metaphysics, I would say, or if we use Wittgenstein's word, the things that cannot be said. Then I came to London. I worked here, started to work here, and through a friend, I got to know Shan. And I still remember the first day I went to the temple and met with Venerable Miaolong, and I described my curiosity. And she told me, then you can just come and try our courses. And then I started to attend the class every Monday evening. So I think we covered quite a bit of topics. I think in the beginning, it is the awakening of faith of Mahayana, 大乘起信论. And then a little bit about the consciousness-only school, the 唯识学派. And then a little bit about the middle way, the 中观. So I think after 6 or 7 months of study, I think I have enough understanding and confidence to become a Buddhist. So I took the refugee of the 3 gems in October last year. So that's my path to become a Buddhist. And then I want to also describe briefly how the more practical part of my feeling here in Shan. So after I joined this research group shortly after I met with Venerable Miaolong, and I also took part in several activities. I think my strongest feeling is that this community, everyone treats each other equally and friendly. It's not like in traditional Buddhist community, like the teachers and students are like father and sons and very strict. So I think it's and I learned from these people how to bring happiness, care, and compassion to other individuals. Not only other individuals in this community, but also other people in my daily life, like my colleagues, my friends, etc. So as also several speakers in the first session mentioned, tradition and modernity are not necessarily contradictory. So I think humanistic Buddhism is a very good combination of them. And I think it really reflects the spirits of Mahayana Buddhism very well. And because I think after all, the so-called this pure land is this land, not a land far away from here. And the target of this paramita is the people in this world, not people in other worlds. Yeah, that's what I want to share. Thank you very much.
Hi, everyone. And tonight I'm going to share the topic is from a Buddhism of elders to a Buddhism of young people. The history of Buddhism spans from the 6th century BCE to the present. With over 2,600 years of history, it has been recognized as one of the major religions in the world. However, due to different reasons, Buddhism has gone through many transformation and development, and now has, different divisions in different parts of the world. Not all followers understand the teaching and the fundamentals. Most of them pray for personal material gains. For example, in China, mainland China, it's common for followers to pray for good result in an exam or safe journey before going for a trip. This has caused a misconception of Buddhism as a superstitious or blind faith, which then indirectly caused the expansion of Buddhism in China to be limited and misunderstood by the public. Even though I was born and raised in a Buddhist family, I did not have a full comprehension of the teaching and beliefs of Buddhism until I was introduced to Master Xing, which has then changed my perspective completely. Master Xing promotes humanistic Buddhism and emphasizes on the 3 acts of goodness: doing good things, saying good words, and thinking of good thoughts, with the ultimate goals to instill the good practice in our daily life. Buddhism embraced the concept of karma, which believes the present moment being shaped both by the past and by the present action, while present action shaped not only the future but also in the present. After realizing this belief, I started appreciating and live in the present moment while planting good seeds for my future. Compared to Buddhism, a 3,000 years old, Foguanshan is a relatively new with only 54 years of history. However, in my opinion, experience and wisdom come with age, while young people represent growth and vitality. Foguanshan is just like the youngsters. Master Xing captures the original essence of Buddha's teaching and built his beliefs not only on the original teachings of Buddha, but also developing new interpretation related to the application in today's world. Holding on his beliefs, Master Xing creates a worldwide network of over 200 temples and 4 universities to promote Buddhism. A good teacher is like a candle. It consumes itself, to lighten the way for the students. Now I have experienced the enlightenment in Foguanshan, and it's my honor to be able to represent, support, as well as recommend Foguanshan. Elders and youngsters are inseparable. Without experience, there will not be any growth. Without growth, there will not be any wisdoms. This is all my sharing for today. I hope this sheds some light to this proposed topic. Thank you very much.
Oh, I might speak firstly, and then Miaolong will have a last speaking. Thank you. I'm honored to and delighted to say just a few words at the end. As the old Chinese saying said, when one drinks water, one must not forget where it comes from. So all us like here today, without Venerable Master Xingyun, we would not be here. And meeting so many lovely friends and sharing wisdom in such a special situation and lead to our a happy and a spiritual rich life. So thanks to our dear Venerable Master who has been working so hard so many years to serve the public, to deliver the Buddha Dharma with action to us. It's his wisdom and compassion which gives us the Buddhist land on the earth and gives us wonderful Buddhist teachers around us to help us in every moment. I searched and found an article Master Xing once wrote. He lists the many things that he himself had thanks to. Besides like parents, teachers, he said that he thanks to his alarm clock. About the alarm clock, he said like, the alarm clock wakes me up. I'm grateful for the clock to improve my vigilance and let me know not to stay in bed. He also said basketball players should be grateful to their opponents because without them, the game could not be played. So I think it is quite wise. That's why I say, let's hope we can thank Venerable Master Xing by doing as what he has told us and to be a grateful person in everyday life. Okay, that's all what I want to say. Thank you very much.